So hello everyone, welcome to today's class on classification. In today's class we will see the basic classification model and what are the different terminology that are used in classification. So in classification is defined as the task of assigning objects to one of the predefined categories, and it is a problem that encompasses many diverse applications. The formal definition that I have taken in the slide has been taken from the book from Introduction to Data Mining by Vipin Kumar and Tan. Okay, so to start with, let's take the definition that is given in the book. So classification is the task of learning a target function f that maps attribute set x to one of the predefined class label y. Okay, so you should always know that in a classification model, we always give input as the attribute set and output will be always a class label. So input data for a classification task is a collection of records, as you can see in the table. So the input data for a classification task is a collection of records. So in this particular example, I have taken the records of the students of a particular class, and whatever attributes I have taken as fee paid, that is a value which is categorical, that means whether it is yes or no, then the marital status of the student, then the total marks obtained in the student by the student, which is a continuous type of attribute, and the last column represents the class attribute. So this is a collection of records. Each record is also known as instance or as example. So this is an instance, this is an instance, so these are the example. Okay, if you see the table shows you a sample data set used for classifying student into one of the categories pass, fail or withheld. So here we are using a data set of student database and we are using it for classifying whether the student result is pass, failed or withheld. The attribute set includes the properties of the student such as fee paid, marital status, total marks obtained by the student or not. So the class label on the other hand must always remember that the class label on the other hand must be a discrete attribute. Okay, so that is a very key characteristic that distinguishes classification from regression. Okay, so this is what we are doing in classification. In classification we are giving input as the attribute set to the classification model, and in the output it will give us the class level which is already predefined. Predefined means the class level will be either pass, either fail or withheld. Okay, so the in the database or in the collection of records, one of the attribute is the class attribute, and in this case it is the result, and generally the last column of the data set is always taken as the class level of the data set. Okay, and the class labels are pass, fail and withheld. So this is what the classification will do. So it will take a data set and it will try to predict the class level based on the attribute values of some data set. Example, so as you can see that the classification is applied to many diverse applications in our real life object. Okay, so for example, if we see how we can categorize the email message. Okay, email message can be categorized as either spam or non-spam. So the class label will be spam or non-spam, and the attribute set in which we are going to apply our classification model will be feature extracted from the email message header and content. Another task is also we can identify the tumor cell either malignant or benign. Okay, and we can identify the cell is either malignant or benign from the feature extracted from X-ray or MRI scan. Another example is that we can also categorize galaxies either elliptical, spiral or irregular shaped galaxies based on the feature extracted from the telescope images. And apart from this also there are lots of areas in classification where we can get some real life example. So now we will discuss some classification, what is the general approach to solving a classification problem. Okay, so generally classification technique, or it is also known as a classifier, is a systematic approach to building a classification model from the input data. Okay, so what we will do, whatever classification technique you are adopting, it also always uses a learning algorithm. As you can see in the picture, this is the learning algorithm. So every classification technique employs a learning algorithm to identify a model that best fit the relationship between the attribute set and the class level of the input data. As we remember that the input is the attribute set and the output will be the class level. So every classification technique employs a learning algorithm to identify a model that best fit the relationship between the attribute set and the class level of the input data. Fine. So the model generated by a learning algorithm should fit the input data well and correctly predict the class level of the record that is it never seen before. So whatever model that is being generated from the learning algorithm should be fit well in the input data, and also that it should accurately predict the class level of the records that is never seen before. So we can see that a key objective of the learning algorithm is to build model with good generalization capability. What do you mean by generalization capability? Is that the models that accurately predict the class level of previously unknown records. Okay. There is another important thing here is that it is known as training set. There are two types of data set that is provided in the classification task. So that is known as training data or training set, and this is known as test data or test set. So the training data, as you can see from the table, it consists of records whose class levels are known or must be provided. So the input data is the training data set where class level is provided. Okay. The training data is used to build the classification model, which is subsequently applied to the test case, which consists of records with unknown class levels. So based on this input data, your learning algorithm will make the classification model, and we are going to apply the model on the test data to identify the class level of some unknown records. So this is the test data set, and these are the training data sets. So based on the training data set, your model will be developed and your model will be applied to the test data set. So this is the general approach of classification task. So as we have discussed that a classification technique or a classifier is a systematic approach to building classification model from an input data set. Okay. So there are various types of classification technique includes. So it may include decision tree classifier, it may include rule-based classifier, neural networks, or support vector machine, or naive-based classifier, and it is the base classifier. So there are some ensemble classifier also, which is known as random forest, boosting, bagging. So these are the different classification techniques or different classifiers. So in the next class we are going to study one by one what are the different types of classifiers. Okay, thank you.